Hi! Welcome friends to the first video in my top 15 favoriteest Super Nintendo games. Unlike the PlayStation 1 video, I realized there was no way I could jam-pack all of my favorites into a tiny little 10 list, so I expanded it to 15. Are you ready? Here's number 15. Wow. I'm so good at the suspense building, aren't I? So good at it. Pink Goes to Hollywood. Now when I say pink, I mean Pink Panther. Nowadays, that title could be misconstrued as a porn title. I had to include Mr. Pink Panther in this video, as it is one of the more memorable games I remember playing with my dad back in the day. It was a single-player platformer, and, you know, pretty simple, pretty chill game, but what we loved to do with it is we could plug in a second controller into the Super Nintendo, and if someone were to hold that controller while the player was playing, you could like activate what was called debug mode. And all I remember, I'm not sure exactly how it worked, is that you could make Pink Panther like float around, so pretty much you could avoid all obstacles. You could just, it's like a permanent P-Wing in Super Mario 3, right? You remember that? So that was really fun. And we made a game of it because there's a level in the game where you are like supposed to be Robin Hood, and so we were floating through all these trees using debug mode, and there's a bunch of squirrels in the treetops. And what we would do is we would go hunting, and every time we would kill a squirrel, we would make a little like tally mark of it. And so he would clear out the entire level, and then I would go through, and then he would control my debug, so I'd be floating through, and then I'd clear out all the squirrels in that level, and we would see who would get the most, just because. Anywho, that is my memory of Pink Panther, and it is great enough and fond enough, and it makes me feel warm and fuzzy enough that it deserves number 15 on my list.
It starts.
Lion King! And I just did that. Cool. I was a huge Lion King, like, fan, girl, child thing growing up. I loved that movie. I, like, could quote it, you know, I could watch and quote every single freaking word and pronunciation and everything. I had billions of stuffed animals. I had all the toys. I had the clothes. I had the bubble bath, you know, etc., etc. So, of course, it was only natural that a young nerd as myself would get the Lion King video game. And as I've said before, I am a big, I don't do this anymore, sadly, because my imagination has gone to shit, a huge video game LARPer. You know, I would play Spyro the Dragon and pretend I was a sheep herder. I would play Earthbound and pretend I was, like, this young kid living in a big city called Forestside. I would play Buck Bumble and pretend I was a bee with my boyfriend. Weird stuff. Anyway, so that's what I did with the Lion King video game. And it was a platformer in itself, and every level was a different scene from the movie. And I never got past the first scene because the first scene was just like a very vertical kind of like outsidey, rocky terrain kind of thing where you could just like romp around as like young Simba, and I would go through that level and I would kill everything or whatever it is lions do. I guess they do kill lots of things. And I would just LARP. I would just pretend that this was my territory, and I was Simba, and this was my area, and no one else would ever come and just take it from me. It was like Lion King 0.5. It was weird shit. It sounds silly now, but at the time, it was something that I looked forward to doing, and it's something I probably spent a good couple hundred hours doing. And my parents are probably very grateful for that, because it kept me out of their hair. No, I'm just kidding. They loved me, and they still do, right, Mom? But other than that, like I said, I never even got past the first level, so I don't know anything else about this game, but good memories with it. Lion King. How many of you remember this bad boy? Mario Paint! Before I owned Mario Paint, I would rent it all of the time from Hollywood Video. I think it was Hollywood Video. Anyway, and I loved renting it because I thought I was such a badass because it came with the mouse and that big plastic like chunk of whatever excuse for a mouse pad. I guess it worked. Yeah. But I had a lot of fun with it, and that's funny because I can't draw for shit. As evidenced by those of you, shameless plug incoming, that get the Microsoft Paint drawings from me every month because of Patreon. You know I cannot draw for shit. And back then, believe it or not, my artistic skills were even worse. Do you guys remember how freaking long it would take that stupid dancing paintbrush to feel like a circle this big? He would like be doing his dance for like 10 minutes, and meanwhile like the paint level is just like going up like this, and that stupid like filling sound of like, ugh. That's not what it sounds like at all. That was so bad. So bad. Anyway, despite the possessed paintbrush that I probably just painted a beautiful picture of in your head, Mario Paint was really fun, and it had this awesome feature. I think it was like the animation tool or something. And so, you know, you have your white like canvas screen on your tube 27-inch TV if you were lucky, and you could just draw whatever you want. And so they, you know, supplied your basic art tools, you know, your like, think of like Microsoft Paint kind of, but they also had pre-rendered Mario like stamps. So, you know, like the bricks that you can find in most Mario levels, or like the clouds or the bushes or whatever. And you could create like a backdrop Mario level. And then you could take the animation tool and you could draw a path for like a little Mario or whatever you wanted it to be to like follow. So I would create like a Mario level, and then I would have Mario like jump along, and I'd have him like fall to his doom and his death, and yeah. Anyway. With that said, there is no denying that the best part of Mario Paint was the fly swatting game. God! It was a super simple, yet super addicting, yet challenging, if I can remember correctly. Maybe it was just because, like, I wasn't used to using a mouse back then, because they didn't really, I mean, they existed, but they weren't, like, everywhere you look. That's my excuse anyway. Anywho, yeah, it was just fun, and I remember playing it all the time with my dad, and my dad would play it all the time too. And he would oftentimes play it without me. And there were many mornings when I would wake up and I would hear him screaming vulgarities because he was getting his ass kicked by that big, what was that? Was it a bee? You know, the thing that would like shoot like flies and crap out of his butt? Like not crap literally, but like, you know, and it would come out in dust and it would swarm and you'd be like, ah, I'm dying. Oh, before I forget, here's another fun memory. I think it's a fun memory I had with Mario Paint. I remember I was card shopping with my mom, and we all know how moms can be when picking out cards. They tend to go through every single one before pondering for an additional 30 minutes over which card they want to choose. So I was just like, you know, like 7 or whatever, and I'm just going through cards, and I saw the front of this card, and it was this woman holding a hot dog. I don't know why I'm going like this, but apparently this is the symbol for hot dog. And the card, the woman is like, birthdays are a lot like wieners. And I don't remember how the rest of the joke went, but I just remember I thought that was funny because it was wiener, and wiener was such a funny word back then because I was so immature. And for the record, I still think wiener is a funny word because I'm still immature. But I went home and I recreated that on my Microsoft Paint game, and I thought it was all cute and clever, and my mom entertained me, and she thought it was funny too. Thankfully, I didn't get in trouble for that. And it's still the painting that is saved on my cartridge. If I were to fire this bad boy up right now, my saved drawing would be a woman holding a wiener, and that's it. I don't know why or when or how, but that's what that would be. The more you know, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, I think it is time to wrap up this silly video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will get another video out soon with my, what number I'm on? 12, 11, and 10 favorite games. I'm gonna get carpal tunnel if I keep doing this shit. Bye!